If bards are masters at turning people's words against them, the arts of lingual deception, persuasion, and magical beguilement, mesmers are their corporeal counterparts. Where a bard can talk their way into a parasitic relationship with your heart and mind, a mesmer can dazzle and distract with illusionary doubles and phantasmal forces. If you'd allow me to, I'd like to introduce you to a half-caster focused on using clones and teleportation to avoid getting hit while dealing pretty respectable amounts of damage. The mesmer is a profession originally from the Guild Wars games, which possesses various abilities surrounding illusionary magic. The creme de la creme, however, is their ability to create copies of themselves that can act as somewhat fragile combatants, or simply shatter near foes, inflicting various effects. A few years back, a friend of mine came across a homebrew class for D&D 5e based on the Mesmer, and decided to play it in our campaign. The class acts as a half-caster, by level 20 gaining access to 12 spells from the wizard spell list capped to 5th level slots. And just for thematic purposes, they're also restricted to the schools of enchantment, illusion, and transmutation. That's not great, but it's also not the focus of the class. Much like the paladin, whose spellcasting is very much secondary to their divine smite, the Mesmer's clones should make up for their weak spellcasting. In the original homebrew, they could summon an unlimited number of them per day, up to 5 active at a time depending on character level, but they only had 1 health, couldn't have spells cast through them until level 10 and only with a specific subclass, required concentration, and additionally only lasted 3 turns unless you spent a bonus action to keep them around. The same bonus action that's required to command the things. That's a lot, but it's not necessarily underpowered. Enemies have to make an intelligence check against your spell save DC to discern where the real you is, but at higher levels, which is coincidentally when you'd have more clones, more and more enemies are just going to wipe them out with AoE or multi-attacks, likely hitting you in the process. Since they cost an action to summon, a bonus action to command, and act on your initiative, you could summon these guys, a number of feet up to 5 times half your mesmer level away from you, and have them all attack the same target, dealing 1d8 damage per illusion plus your natural bonuses. Or just burn your reaction, use the shatter ability, and deal a number of d4s per illusion to all adjacent creatures. This, and being able to summon an infinite number per day, makes enemies killing them too quickly an apparent moot point. The problems become more clear the more details you find out. For example, that you're limited to 1 active illusion until level 8, during which you may as well just attack the enemies yourself, since the clones don't gain access to the benefits of any of your magic items. Using a reaction on your turn to shatter is great, but not every DM is going to allow that, and God forbid the creatures you're fighting or terrain you're fighting in have some passive feature that forces at least 1 damage. Uncommon as that might be, it makes the illusions essentially useless. The last thing I want to mention is that despite the illusions themselves being magical, the page never states that their illusionary weapons count as magical for overcoming resistances, meaning that potential 5d8 gets halved for just about every enemy you'd be fighting at that point, and a long time before it. These and various other reasons I'll avoid for brevity mean the illusions, at least for a while, aren't really worth using, and in my opinion, it not being worth it to use your class's defining feature until at least level 8 is kinda lame. So now for the things we changed and didn't change. The first thing we did was allow the casting of spells through the illusions from level 1. The Mesmer can't gain line of sight through their illusions until level 10 with the Phantom subclass, but they can cast touch spells from up to 90 feet away and extend the range of their other spells by the same distance. Though we did decide that cantrips shouldn't be castable through the illusions because being able to force a creature to make 6 intelligence saving throws or take a potential 18d6 psychic damage and subtract a d4 from its next saving throw without expending any resources seemed just a little exploitable. The doubles can give the help action to any creature making an ability check based on strength, dexterity, or charisma, and starting at 5th level they can hold their action to assist in saving throws based on the same stats. How you want to rationalize an illusionary double assisting a creature in resisting banishment is up to you, but I refuse to take it away. You can use a reaction to make adjacent illusions sacrifice themselves and increase your armor class by 1, basically a whack substitute for the shield spell since, again, you can't use abjuration magic. And it should be noted that any ability check or saving throw made by an illusion outside of the Mesmer's line of sight is made at disadvantage, a problem solved at 6th level under the Phantom subclass. Unlike a lot of martial classes, the Mesmer doesn't gain a permanent extra attack. Instead, at 17th level, they gain a single extra attack when all 5 of their illusions are targeting the same creature as them. But that doesn't have to be a melee attack, so keep that in mind. And most of the other features are all focused on teleporting yourself and the illusions around the battlefield. We could have changed that, completely reworked the other features, and made the class even more of a one-person army than it already was, but we decided to only go for small changes, mostly to changing actions to bonus actions or reactions, and keep them as a highly mobile, difficult to hit, and I think far more unique class. In order, at 7th, 9th, 11th, 13th, and 15th levels, you gain the abilities to spend an action to recall all of your clones to your side, a bonus action to switch places with any clone you can see, a reaction to switch places with any clone you can see, a reaction to switch an ally with any clone you can see, and a reaction and 3 hit dice to prevent a clone from disappearing unwillingly. To use those first 4 abilities, you draw on a blink pool equal to your charisma modifier, because being able to do it infinitely is way too broken, and only being able to do each one once a day is kinda lame. At 18th level, you can spend 10 minutes studying a person and gain the ability to perfectly disguise yourself or any number of your clones as the same person or different people, a disguise which requires an insight check against your spell save DC to discern as false. Been thinking about moving that one to a lower level, but not sure yet. And finally, at 20th level, my personal favorite, the ability to create illusionary doubles of any ally you've spent a week of in-game time training with. The illusion possesses all of your allies' class features, proficiencies, and feats, but no abilities from their subclass. When copying a spellcaster, you can select a number of spells from their spell list equal to your attack modifier, though you still use your own spell slots and spellcasting ability, and you can't take any spells that fall under abjuration, divination, or necromancy. And all damage from these illusions counts as psychic. There's some finer details in reference to key points and the like that still need to be worked out, and though you sacrifice a bit of your own survivability by opting not to clone yourself, you get the ability to vastly increase the strength of your party single-handedly, which I personally find awesome. Think the Simulacrum spell, but you can create 5 in a single action, and they all have 1 hit point. I don't want to waste too much more of your time, but I do want to briefly touch on the 2 subclasses, the Torchbearer and the Phantom. Phantom being a tentative name because obviously there's already a rogue subclass called Phantom. The Torchbearer focuses on the ability to turn an ordinary torch into any one-handed weapon you're proficient in, by 10th level dealing your weapon's attack roll and psychic damage, and an additional 1d4 plus 2d6 fire damage. At 14th, the number of times equal to your Charisma mod, you can turn invisible, and when it ends at the start of your next turn, depending on a Constitution saving throw, you deal as much as 48 fire damage to all adjacent enemies. Honestly, this one still needs work. It's not bad, it's just kind of boring, and unless you take the 2-weapon fighting style, you're forced either to avoid magic swords or abandon the class's main feature. The Phantom, however, is much cooler. At 2nd level, you can make a melee attack from a range of 5 times your spellcasting modifier, up to 30 feet, a number of times equal to your Constitution modifier, or you can use a bonus action to use this ability on an illusion instead. 6th level gives you the ability to passively see and speak through your illusions, which means none of their checks are made at disadvantage. At 10th, once per round, you can add a d4 to your or one of your illusions armor classes against a melee attack. Plus the maximum bonus from Group Hug, that's a possible +9 to your AC, which probably won't come up all too often, if ever, but still cool to me. Similarly, at 14th, you can double the damage of a single attack per round. This was done as an additional substitute for a traditional extra attack, made by you or your illusions, of course. In case it wasn't clear, we were real big on the illusions having utility. And that's pretty much everything. I left out a few of the finer details of the class, but for the most part, this was a pretty comprehensive description of our take on the Mesmer in 5th edition D&D. Though, I'll be honest, we haven't actually had the chance to playtest it yet, and as much as I like what we have, I'm hoping any attention this video may attract also brings ideas for further adjustments. So if you made it this far and you have any notes, both the original class and our modified version are in the description. Feel free to leave any thoughts in the comments.